Hello, my name is Mike Gwinn. I represent American National Insurance here in Lookout, West Virginia, which is located in Fayette County in the New River Gorge area. I have been with American National now since 2016 at this office location in Lookout since 2019. My agency does mostly farm and commercial type business. We do homeowners type, auto, and other personal lines, as well as life insurance and annuities. Our focus is farm policies, and that's kind of what I wanted to go over with you a little bit today and how that applies to farmers market vendors, what may be best for you, what might not work at all for you. American National has been in business for 117 years. About 20 years ago, they purchased farm family insurance specifically for this farm package. It's one of the most comprehensive farm packages in the country, and a lot of other companies now that offer farm insurance have kind of modeled off of it. It is a hybrid personal and commercial type policy, even though it's considered a commercial farm policy. It picks up part of your personal lines in the forms of residences, as well as personal type buildings, covers farm buildings, farm machinery, your livestock, as well as your farm liability and other business type liabilities as well. So that's a little bit about our company and my agency. So I wanted to go in a little bit now into the types of insurance that you may have and what may or may not apply to you as a farmer's market vendor. First of all, I wanted to start off with the three types that we'll mostly encounter. That would be your homeowner's insurance, that would be a farm owner's insurance, and then there's a special event insurance. So starting with a homeowner's type insurance, that's probably going to be for you as a farmer's market vendor, the most limited type of coverage that you could get. So if you are just a small producer and you are doing farmers markets kind of as a hobby, the homeowners policy, a lot of times people think will suffice for coverage, but that's not necessarily the case. Homeowners is primarily a homeowners type coverage, meaning that the primary residence is going to be its primary focus. Some homeowners policies will allow for incidental farming. And what incidental farming is basically comes down to the usage of the property. If your property, let's say you purchase an acre of land, if you're purchasing that acre and you are farming on it, maybe you move the camper on it, you're staying there while you're growing or while you're planting, plowing, but it's not a primary residence. That is not a type of policy or a type of property that a homeowner's policy is intended for. Now, if you bought that same acre, you built a home on it, and maybe you put a little garden or a high tunnel in the backyard, that's more what the homeowners is geared toward. Now, for homeowners insurance and to you, how it applies as a farmer's market vendor, where you're going to run into trouble with is if you think that your homeowners is going to cover your farmers market activities, most of the time your liability is not going to extend away from where the house is at. Now that may differ from company to company, and you may need to check with your agent to double check and make sure. But for the most part, your farm liability or your liability for that little garden you got out back, that little high tunnel, is mainly going to stay right there where your homeowners is located, where your home is located. So most likely that liability is not going to follow you to the farmer's market. So that's why your homeowners is going to give you the least amount of coverage and is the most limited, and why you probably could put yourself in a bind if you are thinking that your homeowners is going to cover your activities at the farmer's market. Most of the time with the homeowners, if you have a farm income of less than $1,000, or you have a 4 or less horses or livestock, you can get by with a homeowners if your activities are right there at the property. Sometimes those homeowners may even offer a little bit of coverage for machinery. But again, it comes back to where your activities are. And most of the time, your farmers markets are not going to be at your home. So your homeowners is going to be the least and the most limiting coverage that you have. So moving on to the farm owners product, which is what we specialize in. There are a number of different companies that offer farmers type insurance. This is not crop insurance. This is more property and liability type coverage for farm structures, farm machinery, your livestock liability, and your business liability as it pertains to that farming. Most of the time, a farmer's policy starts out around $3,000 in annual farm income, 4 or more livestock or horses. If you have any kind of lesser's risk type, if you are leasing your land, the farm type policy is going to be more in tune for what you're doing. And how that pertains to you now as a farmer's market vendor is this is for the next step up. The people that are doing this as a hobby and may only go to 1 or 2 markets a year, the farm type policy may not be the best fit. But if you are a farmer's market vendor and you do this as your primary source of income, or you're making more than $3,000 a year, you may want to consider a farm policy because your exposure may be a little bit more. Those farm policies, their liability will extend to wherever you set up. There's some business endorsements that you can add to your farm policy, and those will follow you wherever you set up. There's also some specialized coverage in there, especially if you are selling multiple type products like ground vegetables, jams and jellies in jars, maybe goat milk soaps, things like that. If you're selling multiple products, a farm policy with the business endorsements are going to be a better fit for you, and that is going to apply to you more as a food vendor. That kind of makes a farmer's market vendor. That's going to make things easier for you. All that coverage is already built in. It's an annual type policy. It gives you coverage at the residence, at the farm, wherever you set up and sell. Kind of a one-stop shop kind of type of deal. Now, the third option is for someone that may be on that end, like we were talking about with the homeowners, may just do 1 or 2 markets a year, or maybe is making less than $3,000 a year, maybe just making a few $100s a year. The cost of insurance sometimes is cost prohibitive for a small farmer's market vendor. So the third type option you have would be an events type option. And there are a number of different companies, especially there are companies you can go online and do the quoting yourself, that offer event type insurance. And usually the benefit of an event type insurance is you have the option to purchase the insurance in increments, like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or even 12 months. What a event type insurance gives you is your liability for your premises, where your tent's set up, where your product that you're sold. You have product liability as well. You got some limited, usually personal property type coverage, which would, if you had cash registers or an expensive scale, your tents, your tables, that type of materials you can cover on those event type insurances as well. Generally, they're less expensive than a full farm policy, where because the exposure is less. But those policies, those event type policies, can get a little pricey too, depending on how you structure and how much coverage you need. From a farmer's market vendor standpoint, an event type insurance may be your best bet, unless you have a larger operation and you have a bigger exposure, and you actually have farm buildings, farm machinery, a number of livestock that you want to cover. Then that farm policy is probably going to be a better deal for you. Most of the time in West Virginia, the majority of farms in West Virginia are small family owned. And that's probably the highest concentration in the country of small family owned type farms. Generally make less than $10,000 a year. So that usually falls in the kind of breadbasket for these farm type policies that we offer and for those event type insurance. Again, homeowners, there is some incidental farm coverage in there, but if you're doing any type of business, I would kind of shy away from just relying on it. And if you do, I would suggest that you contact your agent, make sure the appropriate coverage is there for you, because one loss could be enough to wipe you out. From a farmer's market vendor, if you are going and looking for farm type insurance, or you're looking for an event type insurance, my suggestion on the liability side would be at least to start out with $1 million per occurrence, $2 million aggregate. What that basically means is you're giving yourself $2 million for the year, but it won't pay any one loss more than $1 million for your liability part. And then, of course, your property type coverage is going to depend on how much coverage you have and the deductible, minimum deductible. Sometimes, a tent and a couple tables and stuff wouldn't be enough to cover your deductible if you had a loss. But those are things like that you need to think of as a farmer's market vendor, where you set up, where your markets are located. Don't rely on the farmer's market itself. A big mistake I hear from farmer's market vendors is that, well, the farmer's market has insurance, so I'm covered. And that's not the case. The farmer's market may have insurance for itself and liability for injury or property damage that it's responsible for, but you individually as a farmer's market vendor also have a responsibility. And whenever you set up your tent, you need to be mindful, be aware of where you're setting it up, make sure the ground is even, make sure there's no make sure you're not setting up in an area where a person could get hurt or their property could be damaged. So you do have a responsibility there. Don't rely on the farmer's market itself. Again, a lot of times most of the time their coverage isn't going to apply to you. So it'd be better off to cover your own self. I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of an insight into the insurance side. I know it's not the most interesting information to talk about. If you have any questions, my office, like I said, is centrally located in the state. We're open during the week, 8:30 to 4:30, and I would love to be able to help you out with any questions that you have, even if you're not interested in any insurance, but you're interested in how you need to set up, how you need to structure things. Just let us know, and Erica and the Farmers Market Association will be able to get you our information. And we really appreciate the time that you give us. We've appreciated the ability to speak in other locations as well, and I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any other questions or anything, please feel free to let us know. Thank you.